So welcome, and we'll just go ahead and get started with some quick intros. My name's Christian. I'm the head of content and product marketing at Qt. So I help, especially with the product marketing aspect, explaining our new features and functionality, making sure that you all, as Qt customers, are able to make the most of Qt's virtual waiting room.
Yeah, and I'm Lotta. I work as a product manager here at Qt. I've been here a little more than 1 year. And I work on the Go Qt platform, which I'm sure a lot of you online know about, but I mainly focus on the traffic insights and the reporting tools. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Martin. I've been around Qt since the very early days, so I've seen a lot, and especially how bots have become an increasingly severe problem over the years. I had different roles in R&D, but currently I find myself in product management, fighting bots and other malicious activity.
Awesome. I really love it's Team Neo, right? So that's always, if anyone knows the Matrix, right? That's kind of like dealing with the bots and abuse. So I think very appropriate. So just a quick rundown of the agenda today. We'll go a little bit into the impact of what we call malicious traffic, and also kind of just define what we mean by that at Qt. A 4-step process to help prevent bots with Qt. Quick look into the future, what's ahead for bots and abuse functionality, and then, as I mentioned, Q&A with the two experts here, taking advantage of the time we have with them. So sort of taking a step back, just square one, at Qt, what do we mean when we talk about malicious traffic?
Yeah, well, we have a pretty clear definition. Malicious traffic is traffic coming from bots or any users that try to unfairly access your website or app. So it's pretty simple. And sometimes this is tech-savvy users who try to create and share scripts or browser plugins, but it can also be very, very sophisticated scalper bots operated by organizations similar to any other tech company, really. But the aim is always to gain an advantage over genuine users, basically. So that's malicious traffic.
Gotcha. And yeah, I mean, I think as our co-founder Niels Soderman recently said, over the past decade or so, as Martin also described, sort of we've been working with some of the most high traffic sales and registrations in the world, right? What might be one business's busiest day or 2 days of the year is sort of our bread and butter 24/7, 365, what we help, because we help all those customers at those peak moments. So one of the areas that gives us a unique vantage point into is sort of the bots and abuse aspect of these sales. And the picture is really not so pretty when you sort of pull back the curtain. So just to give a concrete example of what we're talking about, this is some statistics from a very high-profile sneaker drop from a household brand that you all know last year. So there were 1.7 million visitors in a 1-hour time span. Over a 10-minute time span, there was 80,000 visitors per minute trying to enter the waiting room. Now, the threshold was 1,500 per minute, which is already a pretty nice clip in terms of processing orders and or processing visitors, right? But 80,000, as you see, 53 times the inflow level there, the outflow rather. And of those 1.7 million visitors, what we found is fewer than 100,000 were genuine users. So just to give a little bit of a sense of scale of the bad bot problem, what you all are up against, what companies are up against every day in 2023. And just also to say, this is concretely from a sneaker drop example, but it's not just in sneakers, right? We see it in e-commerce more broadly, in ticketing, etc. So Martin, I know you're sort of the heading up the bots and abuse management side of things. Can you tell us a little bit about the trends you're seeing when it comes to who's most at risk?
Yeah, sure. The one trend that we see over and over again is that bots use 2 factors, speed and volume, to gain this unfair advantage. So bots are faster than genuine users, and they will grab the inventory before genuine users can ever do. The other thing is that they can span to many virtual users and that all appear genuine. And we see these tactics from anything from ticket on sales to product drops and government relief applications. Basically anywhere where there's a limited supply and a high demand, or there's items with a high value or a high resale potential.
Yeah, I know one area we also see them in is holiday season sales, right? Like they're also called Grinch bots, right? For good reason. Snagging those that sought after Christmas toys and stuff. It really is a bit of a downer during the holiday season, and I think 34% ramp up in bot activity in November, right? So that's one other area, but that's a really good overview, Martin. And just sort of to talk about the business impact a little bit. It might on the surface seem like, okay, a sale is a sale. I'm an e-commerce manager. A sale is a sale. Is this really a problem I need to be very worried about? And I think the arguments are there's several arguments about it. I think most of them kind of come down to this undermining fairness and trust in your brand. It might not be an immediate impact, but certainly a slow erosion as fans see that the fans and shoppers, they see that they can't get their hands on the products and are pushed to sort of reseller platforms where it's 3, 4, 5x the price. And from sort of a business intelligence perspective as well, you're then missing out on those insights into who your true customers are when they're buying on reseller platforms. So that limits your ability to do marketing to them, but also have business intelligence like purchase history, and also loop them into your loyalty programs as well. So that kind of leaves you a little bit in the dark. Of course, analytics as well. I know even at Qit, we're not even an e-commerce shop, but we on the marketing team get really frustrated with the bots skewing the activity, the analytics, because that's what you use to make business decisions as well. Of course, we talked about that sneaker example, right? 53 times the inflow, massive spike. The bots can just crash the website outright and ruin things for everyone. And then, of course, there's operational and support costs that go along with all of these issues. So, Lotta, I know you're kind of on the ground talking with these organizations, like the one we referenced earlier. So how are they talking about things?
Well, I can tell you one thing. It's a very hot topic and one that's on everyone's lips. And of course, that makes sense. It's something that more and more customers are worried about. As you said, even it doesn't need to be ticketing companies or any bigger organizations. It could be smaller ones as well. But I think a lot of the feedback that we get is captured super nicely in this one customer quote. Customers just want to know, are we serving genuine visitors or bad bots, basically? They want that visibility. And then in this quote here, as we can see, once they have that visibility, of course, they also want some guidance on what to do when I'm seeing malicious traffic, but also they often want a way to do something fast. So yeah, ultimately, I think it's about just having as much control over the traffic as you possibly can. And of course, that's what Martin and I are trying to do with our 2 features here. So the bots and abuse protection tool and then traffic insights and reporting. It helps you give that visibility and also take action when needed. So at least we're trying, right?
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And that's sort of, now we've kind of wrapped up just setting the scope a little bit, setting the lay of the land when it comes to the bots and abuse problem. And then just quickly pivoting into where does Qit fit into this picture and how can we help, right? One analogy I like to think about, because it is true that there's a large ecosystem of bot and abuse mitigation tools, and I think Lotta and Martin would be the first to say that there is no one silver bullet, right? That you often want a multi-layered approach. But again, so there's a lot of tools out there. How does Qit fit in? What's our unique angle? And I like to reference this analogy. If you think about boarding a flight, right? You go into the airport, into the lobby area, then you'll go through a security checkpoint into sort of the protected area where you can then board the flight. And if you look at the security at these 3 different stages, in the lobby you can go in. There's not, you can be anonymous, so to speak. There's not anyone checking identity. There is security stuff going on, right? You have bomb sniffing dogs, you have police, you have security cameras. And then you go through that security checkpoint where all the flow of passengers is controlled and they verify and validate your identification, your boarding pass, your passport. They run your luggage through X-ray checks. You do a full body scan, etc. And then you're into that sort of protected area where there's also security in place, and there's a final check, sort of right at the sort of the final transaction, I guess, so to speak, as you board the plane. Of course, the analogy here in a sort of an e-commerce and online journey is you're going into the home page. You're then going to a protected portion of the website, like a landing page that protects a specific sale, which is when you go through Qit's virtual waiting room. And then on the other side, you're allowed to proceed through the checkout. And what Qit uniquely brings is, because we're controlling that flow of visitors, then it allows a time for you to sort of slow down the traffic, give your other bot tools a chance to breathe, but also verify and validate the identity of those visitors and run checks that can kick the bots out of line. So that's kind of just to set the scene a little bit of how I think we play in this larger ecosystem of bot abuse mitigation. So now to brass tacks, so to speak. So Martin, what sort of protection does Qt offer specifically?
Yeah, so this analogy is kind of a good way of thinking about it. From your first sale as a customer, you typically don't need to worry too much about it though, because we already have this security checkpoint in place to make sure that your sales run smoothly. So first of all, you're hopefully on a server-side or edge connector, which will ensure that the visitors actually do pass through the waiting room before they can complete the transaction. Secondly, we have this pre-queue feature where we randomize visitors, giving each visitor a random place in the line. So basically, we take away the speed advantage that I mentioned before. So bots will have to wait in the line like everyone else, and they can't grab the inventory. Finally, we look for anomalies in user behavior, which is our way of limiting the volume advantage. So we simply take users away from the line when they look suspicious.
Yeah, and so that would be like if they had a non-valid boarding pass, or sort of if they failed the X-ray check in this analogy. That's a great point.
Yeah, and to Martin's point here, we have a lot of tools, of course, to help minimize malicious traffic. Some of these tools can be flipped on and off depending on the details of your bot problem out there, but getting the best setup is, of course, an iterative process, and also sometimes it's a process where we did something and then we need to change later on. Luckily, however, the process is pretty straightforward, and as we can see here on the screen, there are 4 steps that we typically follow when we work with our customers to make the setup as perfect as it can be. So we're now going into this bit where we'd like to demonstrate what the 4 steps entail. I do just want to make one small note, which is that this process, these 4 steps, are the same. Doesn't matter if you're sitting there and you're monitoring your event, it's during the event. It's the same 4 steps, but of course, in that phase, it's going to be a shorter, quick assessment and everything. But after the event, you'll have more time to dig into the details. But it is the same 4 steps that we follow all the time. So, right. It doesn't matter, again, back to the bot problem, like growing everywhere. It doesn't matter which company you work for out there. The process remains the same. We do follow these 4 steps. And what we'd like to do now is to take you through the 4 steps and basically look at a ticketing company of ours and what that looked like for them. So that's what we're going to do in a second. But first, let's just go over detecting. What does that mean? Well, it's about paying attention to anything that's out of the ordinary. And Martin was saying how he's been around a little bit longer than I have. So I know that there's quite a few common examples, and I know Martin's gonna take you through some of those examples where it's possible to detect that something is out of the ordinary.
Yeah, like you say, there's a bunch of different ways that bots show up, but one very common pattern that we see is spikes in the visitor inflow. So on this graph here, we see what a typical inflow looks like with no significant bot activity. So the inflow increases during the pre-queue and will start to decrease shortly after the event has started. So we get this kind of flow at the top one. What we usually see what we might see on high-profile events is these spikes in the inflow. They may look like the bottom 2 examples. So genuine users will never cause these sudden increases or drops in inflow, and therefore it's a pretty clear sign of bot activity. Exactly.
And also, just to make it even easier, we do offer real-time alerts. As these images show here on the screen, we provide alerts popping up on your monitoring screen so you can quickly act, again, back to the point of what customers are after. Yeah, there's alerts so you can quickly assess the situation. But I think if you guys are still with us out there, maybe we want to jump to a real use case.
Yeah, I think it's always cool to see examples based on real data, right, from one of our ticketing companies, our customers.
Okay, so this is a customer I was talking about, and they were in the middle of their event selling concert tickets. And of course, they were super excited. But all of a sudden, they started to see this spike in inflow. And at the same time, they noticed that alert sitting on top of the screen here, it said that they had aggressive IP addresses taking up QIDs. And that was basically them doing the first step. They detected a problem. Yeah, so once you've detected that something is out of the ordinary, of course, you then need to assess the situation. So that's step number 2. And what do we mean by that? Well, it's of course about understanding the severity of the anomaly. And if that's during the event, it's about deciding if there's a quick fix right here and right now. But of course, if it's when the event is done, it's also about deciding how to make sure to avoid the same levels of malicious traffic next time around. And one of the tools, again, I'm the PM for the traffic insights and reporting tools. One of the tools that's super helpful to dig a little bit deeper is traffic insights analysis. And what are they called? The dashboards to analyze the traffic. It's a great tool. But of course, we also have a lot of customers who combine the traffic insights details with intelligence from other bot tools out there. That's totally normal and very fine. So yeah. Now, back to the customer. They were monitoring the event, they saw a spike, and got a traffic alert. Now, of course, they wanted to assess the situation and decided to click to see more details on the traffic overview page. And right away, a few things stood out. One, they were seeing traffic from Denmark and from France, and also these French IP addresses were data centers. So this kind of supported our suspicion of malicious traffic. Of course, we can drill further into the details, but in this case, we wanted to just take 2 actions. One, the data centers we're not interested in, so we wanted to block them. And number 2, the Danish IP address we weren't super sure about, so we wanted to impose a challenge on that IP address.
So now that we detected and did our assessment, it's time to mitigate the traffic we believe is malicious. And there's a few ways that we can do that. First, we have the option to challenge visitors when they first enter the queue. If we continue the security checkpoint analogy, this would be showing our boarding card before we even get to join the line at the security point. Options include captures, our proof of work challenge. They can both easily be switched on and off during the sale using the Go platform, but we also have more advanced options and powerful options where it's more like verifying the identity of users, like showing your passport, for instance. Secondly, while visitors are waiting, we look for abnormal visitor behavior. So you can compare this, like you said, with scanning the bags or walking through the detectors at the checkpoint. So visitors that behave suspicious will be challenged or blocked access to the waiting room. The final thing that we have is something new that we're launching quite soon, and that is traffic access rules. This allows us to set up more fine-grained if-then rules, and let's take a look what that looks like. From the previous steps, we identified 3 IP addresses to mitigate in order to decrease the level of malicious traffic. We don't want to affect traffic originating from other IPs. With traffic access rules, we can define if-then rules targeting only those 3 IP addresses. So first, we want to challenge the Danish IP address with a captcha. As you see here, there's a few options to select from when identifying visitors. But in this case, we selected IP address for the if condition, as we want to target visitors from a specific IP address. For the then action, we select challenge. Secondly, we want to set up another rule blocking the 2 friends' IP addresses. Again, we select the IP address after putting in a name for the rule. Then we fill in the 2 IP addresses. And finally, we select the block then action. Once rules have been configured, we simply need to publish the rules to take effect. Keep in mind that this is an early version of the traffic access rule interface. It will likely change, but the main concept should stay the same.
Right. So this customer managed to take action doing this very hectic ticket sale. And after the event, of course, they now want to evaluate the overall event. And I'm sure everyone out there, that you also do an evaluation. But in this case, what we would do here is just really want to evaluate the impact of that mitigation that we just did. So to evaluate the traffic, again, the traffic insights dashboards there are great. But I think for now, let's go to the best place where you can actually evaluate the bots and abuse mitigation that we just did. So that would be this new dashboard, bots and abuse. And we're about to launch that as well. Basically, we'll show you in a second. What it does is that it allows you to see what happened, why, when, and to who. So let's take a look and see what that looks like in action as well. This is the new dashboard, and it allows you to, as you can see, look at the traffic that got challenged and the traffic that got blocked. So let's start looking at the blocked traffic. And of course, there's a lot of things you can do here, but for now, I want to just make sure that the blocking worked and that it was the right choice. So right away, I notice these 2 French IP addresses, and I can conclude 2 things. 1, they continued to be aggressive, and 2, I actually managed to block them. I see zeros in the inflow column. Great. Now I'd like to evaluate the effects on the challenged Danish IP address. So I go ahead and filter on Denmark. So I filter on Denmark, and I immediately see the same IP address here in the very top. So I want to go ahead and filter on this one IP address just to see the effects of what we did. And now I see that not a lot of the challenges were solved, and more were, in fact, rejected. This, and then the fact that such a large amount did not even try to solve the challenge, tells me that this could be malicious traffic, and probably something that I'd want to investigate a little bit further. Right. So now we basically completed that circle of the 4 steps. So the customer detected a problem, assessed the situation, mitigated, and then saw the results of that. Again, this is a very simplified way that this could work, but it could work, and it's based on real data. So yeah.
Yeah, and we actually also started a new cycle. We, during the evaluation phase, we detected that the challenge didn't really have the effect that we anticipated. So
Exactly.
the circle repeats itself.
Yeah.
Great. So thanks for walking us through that sort of the 4-step process. Now, just before we get to the Q&A, to shift a little bit and give a quick look into the future, what lies ahead. Martin, could you maybe just speak to some of the features and direction we're going with when it comes to bots and abuse?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can do that. Some of the features that we've shown you here today are not yet generally available. So if you'd like to try out the new bots and abuse dashboard and the traffic access rules, we do allow you to sign up for early access. So please reach out to Lotte or myself or your customer success manager, and we'll try and set you up. If we look a little bit further into the future, we are committed to continue to invest in this area because it is a huge thing for you guys out there, we know. So we're going to continue to add more of these traffic alerts, and we will also make what we've shown here today a lot easier to configure, as we are going to enable setting these traffic access rules up with a few clicks from within traffic insights, of course. There's also a very, very basic example that we've shown here today, and of course, 3 IP addresses will not really a realistic scenario, but there are other ways that we can target multiple users at the same time.
And I think just to wrap it up, the point was that you can assess the situation, like in the case that we showed. Like this customer wasn't expecting traffic from Denmark or France. So of course, like they went and they saw that these guys were taking up a lot of QIDs, so they decided to take an action on it. So, but yeah, very basic example, but yeah, that's how we would do it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Super. So just before we get to the Q&A, some concrete actions that you can take. Is their traffic insights is available for everyone in a basic version in the GoQA platform, so you can check out those insights yourself. And then you can reach out to your customer success manager to talk about the server-side edge integrations we talked about before. That's sort of a basic building block if you're concerned about bots and abuse, to use a server-side or edge integration versus a client-side one. And then the Traffic Insights Premium, which gives additional access, and the bots and abuse management feature as well, which gives access to a lot of the tools that we've discussed today. So, but then with that said, I think we will jump right into the Q&A. Martin and Lotta, I can see there's a couple questions. Yeah.
There's one here from Brian. What about events with large breach of IPs, thousands? What types of criteria can the rules use to mitigate? So today we should just shown you a simple one with single IP addresses. We can of course do subnets. We can also do ASNs, organizations, the way IPs are grouped out there. So that's one thing that we will be releasing in the first version. Later on, we're going to hopefully add more advanced ones, like we do these with our anomaly detection product. We do these reputation scores, so we actually score visitors based on their behavior, and that's also something that you can use to filter out users. So you would, for instance, be able to say that that everyone with a score below 30 should be blocked or should have a challenge, for instance. Yeah.
And I think there was also a question about blocking. Could you block a whole country? Is that, or how it?
That is something we are also looking into. It's technically not that difficult. So if that's something that you would like to do out there, then of course that's something we could add. So for instance, you could say, block everyone that's not coming from the UK with a reputation score less than 30, and so forth.
And I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. There's just one about retrospective look back that I see on the bots and abuse dashboard, and we do have that. So with Traffic Insights Premium, there's 14 days of historic data, but we just launched the ability to restore data from the archive. So basically, you can go 400 days back in time and restore 7 days of data there. So and that applies for the bots and abuse dashboard as well. Yeah. So back in time, yeah.
Super. Yeah. And there was a follow-up there from Brian about if the blocks are permanent or if they expire over time to handle situations where shared IPs are in the mix.
Yeah, so currently we do block, I think, for 24 hours. This is something that we will probably adjust over time. Yeah, maybe even make configurable at some point.
Great. There's also a question here about using different CAPTCHA options other than Google's reCAPTCHA and Qt.
Yeah. So again, that's something we would like to have a feature request on. Currently, it's only Google's reCAPTCHA and our own that we support, but we know there are other out there, and we are actually planning to make support for this to some extent. So if you have some other solution that you'd like to use, then please do reach out to us.
Yeah. And I did want to highlight that Qt capture, that we also have our own version, as you mentioned, not just the Google reCAPTCHA, which is of course also a possibility.
There's also a question from, I'm not sure how to pronounce, Yale. Can you add those rules during a live event? And that's more or less what we just demoed. Again, it's a first version of the tool, and it's you can get early access, but the answer would be a yes.
That will be apply immediately, right?
Yeah.
And later on, as I mentioned, we want to make this integration with Traffic Insights, so with a few clicks of a button, you can actually do it really, really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do we have?
We're looking here.
Oh, there's something about bypass. What are your thoughts about sites like, I don't even know how to pronounce this, but they do offer bots that can apparently bypass Qt. Yeah, so that's really where our connectors come in play. We need to if we make sure that we have a server-side or edge connector and it's configured correctly, then bots aren't really able to bypass. They are forced to go through the security checkpoint, but it does require that the customers use the correct connector, and we have made sure that all the security holes have been plugged in.
There are also some questions in the general Q&A. I can see that we entered. Let's see here. Can you import Qt data into your own analytics tools?
You can. The traffic insights data, so this very, very rich request-based data, you cannot. But like with any count of inflow, outflow, wait time, all of that stuff, we do have an API solution for that. And who knows what the future holds in terms of the rich details that Traffic Insights offers. But yeah, there is an API solution. Yeah.
I've gotten alerts on aggressive IP addresses. What other alerts do you show?
Yeah, well, for now, we have 3 alert types. We also have a data center alert. So if we're seeing aggressive data centers winding up in the waiting room, we alert customers as well. And then also for good bots. So any Google bots or anyone that we'd actually don't want to be in the waiting room, but actually allow them to get access to the content of the target URL. So yeah, 3 types, but as we said, we're adding a lot more alerts, in the months to come.
Great. Can I download the data?
Yes, well, you can. We have several download options for the reporting bit. There's CSV options. So basically, there's a lot of options there. Whereas for the rich details, it's a little bit limited still, but again, more options to come there as well.
I think, just verifying now, looking at the chat, I think this was something maybe you might have touched on, Martin, but with the new traffic rules feature, are we going to be able to block countries, user agents, ASNs, etc.?
Yeah, so user agents and ASNs will be included by default. Countries, it's probably something we will do, and there will be more options as well, yes. Subnets and organizations that have been registered with the IPs and so forth.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. There was one about the platform supporting shared IP reputation for all Qt clients. I think this might have been about the reputation score.
Right. Yeah. So yes. So we do have a shared IP reputation across all clients. Yes. The reputation that we give on IP addresses or users will be shared, yeah. But what you actually choose to do with that reputation score would be up to the customer, right? So if I, as a user, enter Qt and I get a reputation score of 50, then you as a customer can configure what should happen if it's 50, right? Should nothing happen, or should it be blocked or challenged or whatnot?
I think a lot of this one for you there are features hidden in premium uses, or are they all available in basic? So I think that's maybe talking about the Insights premium versus basic, what the difference is there. Yeah,
there's all the dashboards, all the tools to do your analysis are there. It distinguishes it differs on time ranges that we enable. So for the premium, it's 14 days, whereas the basic is just 6 hours. And there's also some functionality. For instance, these traffic alerts are not included in the basic version. So yeah.
We have similar on the bots and abuse side of it. I mean, some of the things are out of the box in the basic version. So something like anomaly detection, that's something we will have there, but there's going to be some restrictions in terms of what you can actually do with it.
And I think also with Insights, correct me if I'm wrong, Lotte, but there's additional filters. I think it's something like 12 versus 25. And there's also, I think you can go a little more granular with some log details, if that's right. Okay, yeah.
There's a lot of different things. There's also a bunch of benefits, of course, with the reporting tool that we have. There are some benefits. If I'm sure the customer success managers out there can, we have a nice one-pager clarifying that. But there's also the question of what would we show to the blocked IP address? So those that we block.
Yeah. So that's something we're working on a bit. Currently, they will see a page saying that they have blocked access. We are going to make it a little bit more nicer and maybe customizable for you guys, but basically giving the user an explanation of what happened and what they can do to try and resolve the issue.
Cool. There was also one about the data center blocking, if they would be able to add additional data centers.
Yeah, so we do have this list of data centers that we provide. So you could say through the traffic access rule that if an IP is originating, or if traffic is originating from a data center, then you can take some action on it. That is a list that we maintain, and it's not trivial to figure out if an IP address is actually from a data center. So some will think that there are more IPs that are included in data centers, and some will say that there should be less. So with traffic access rules, it does allow you to set up your own lists. So you could, for instance, say you use our list, and then you also say if it comes from this ASN or this subnet, then it's also a data center. Right?
And the data center blocking in particular, that is already live, I think has been for the last
we do have
6 to 12 months in the part of the bots and abuse package. Is that right?
We do have a data center option right now. We're going to pull it out of where it is right now and put it into this traffic access rules to make it a little bit more customizable. For instance, we have a case right now where iCloud has come with this new iCloud private relay service, and those are actually marked as data centers because the traffic actually is proxies to data centers, but it's real users behind it. So you could, with traffic access rules, make a rule saying I want to, target these data centers, but I want to exclude what's called iCloud private relay.
And on that same question, also removing data centers from the list would,
Yeah, that would be also possible. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be the same case, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And then there was also one about.
From Jennifer, also further up.
Sorry, we have a separate screen here with the questions that we're looking at. Let's see. There was also one about suggestions to monitor for false positives after mitigation is put in place.
Yeah, that's something that will also come up later on, we hope, in Traffic Insights, where we will hopefully be able to show what we've done with anomaly detection and who we blocked, and then who actually solved the challenges, and put some statistics on that. We're a little bit away from that still, but that's where we want to go.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you want to grab the question?
Yeah, I think we answered it. It was about whether we could add the rules during the live event.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And let's see here, message. Okay, I don't think we've discussed this one. Is there a feature that allows to detect or block traffic that's not necessarily aggressive in volume, but with malicious intentions, such as SQL injection attacks?
So this is protecting the waiting room, and we have other systems to protect us against SQL injection on our side. So it's not really a part of what we offer here. It's not a web application firewall in a traditional way. So that would not that's not something that we would be offering.
Perfect. Let's see, do we have any other questions in the Q&A? Otherwise, I think we've addressed all the ones that you've entered. Thank you, by the way, for all these questions. This is really, really great. We always love when we get a lot of questions to discuss. I think we also have covered all the ones in the Q&A. Mm-hmm. Great, and we're almost just like sort of 2 or 3 minutes shy of time, so we'll go ahead then in lieu of additional questions and give you a couple minutes of your day back. Just as a reminder about sort of some of the actions you can take. Traffic Insights in a basic version is available to everyone, and then you can talk to your customer success manager about some of the tools you talked about that we saw here, the server-side edge integration, making sure that's part of your packet, your subscription, Traffic Insights Premium, bots and abuse management, and then also for some of those experimental features that we talked about as well, or not experimental, sorry, that's the wrong word, but the early access, sorry, yeah. Early access, the bots and abuse dashboard and traffic access rules to also reach out to customer success manager. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thank you, Martin and Lotte, for sharing your expertise with us. Really appreciate it. And
Thanks for having us.
yeah, thanks for joining, and hope you have an amazing rest of your day wherever in the world you might find yourself.